This week's edition of Hockey Inside Out will deal with the theme of return. Carey Price looks to be on his way back from the NHLPA Player Assistance Program, trying to get himself back on the ice. The Canadiens, unfortunately, returning to their losing ways. But there's good news for us. Jessica Rusnak is back. We missed you. It's been a while. We really missed you. Yes, at least. We'll get to all the other fun stuff here on this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. And Jess is back. My name is Julian McKenzie, and I'm sitting alongside the usual suspects. Live from the Montreal Canadiens practice facility, it's Stu Cowan. Live from his office, it's Rick Green, the former Montreal Canadiens assistant coach and, of course, Stanley Cup champion. And also from their own abode, it's CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak. Also, as I mentioned before, back with us here on Hockey Inside Out. Let's get into these topics. A lot to cover on this week's edition. We have to talk about Carey Price, the superstar goaltender who spent 30 days in the NHLPA Player Assistance Program. He took to the internet to drop a statement on his time there. If you don't mind, I'll read it off of my phone here. Over the last few years, I have let myself get to a very dark place, and I didn't have the tools to cope with that struggle. Last month, I made the decision to enter a residential treatment facility for substance abuse. Things had reached a point that I realized I needed to prioritize my health for both myself and for my family. Asking for help when you need it is what we encourage our kids to do, and it was what I needed to do. I am working through years of neglecting my own mental health, which will take some time to repair. All I can do is take it day by day. With that comes some uncertainty with when I will return to play. I appreciate all the overwhelming support and well wishes. I please ask that the media and hockey community continue to respect our privacy at this time. Your support and respect of this so far has been a critical piece to my recovery. Jess, I want to start with you with this. What did you think of the statement from Carey Price?
I think it's extremely brave of him to put it out there and put it all out there. It's not easy when you have substance abuse issues to tell, close friends and family members. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to tell a whole bunch of strangers about what's going on with you. And perhaps this might be able to help someone who's also going through something and to say, oh, wow, look at Carey Price, the star goaltender of the Montreal Canadiens. He's dealing with a similar thing that I am going through right now. It's not easy to take a step back, especially when you're a high-paid professional athlete, to say, I'm going to just focus on myself, especially now when his team is not doing so great and they could really use him. But he's saying, you know what, I need to get my mental health in order. And if you think about it, being a professional athlete is such a short period of time in athletes' lives that he's got 3 young kids. He wants to be there for them, see them grow up and be the best father that he can be. And that's what he's doing right now. And I think, great on him for doing this, taking this step and being courageous enough to go out there and share his story.
Yeah, I think Price wanted to speak with his teammates before issuing a statement, and he was here at the Bell Sports Complex Tuesday morning talking with his teammates for the first time. And then, as we know, the statement came out a little bit later in the afternoon. Good for Carey Price to realize he had a problem and go get help, and good for him to sort of end speculation about what he might have been dealing with. Getting it out in the open right now, which will end the speculation about what he might have been. But for Carey Price, I can't think of a more pressure-packed position in pro sports than goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. He lives in a very, very bright spotlight. Nobody lives in more of a hockey fishbowl than him on and off the ice. He's handled it remarkably well for a guy who was thrown into it at a very young age and probably not really prepared for it. You got to remember, Carey Price came from a very small place in BC, thrown into big city with a big spotlight on him. He had a hard time early in his career adjusting to that. I think the Canadiens could have handled him better as a young player. I think he should have been living with a veteran player or GM Bob Gainey or something similar, what they do with Brendan Gallagher, who lived with Josh Georges. It was a huge spotlight for him to come into, but he matured into it on and off the ice. As I said, he handled it very well, calm, cool, and collected, but it's another sign as calm, cool, and collected as somebody might look on the outside. We never know what's going on in the inside with whether it's a pro athlete or anybody in life. And this is a sort of a message for everyone. Carey Price seemed that nothing bothered him. Obviously, something was bothering him. So as Dominic Ducharme said the other day, this is more about Carey Price, the human being, than Carey Price, the hockey player. So hopefully he can get his life back together for him, for his wife, for his 3 lovely kids, and move forward and be have a happy life both on and off the ice after this. But the spotlight, as I said, he's been in a very bright spotlight since the beginning, and that's going to continue moving forward also.
And I was surprised that he did reveal that it was a substance use issue, but I got to give him full mark for coming forward. And I'm going to assume this is part of the healing process. It's going to allow him to get his life back. And the good news is he was in for the 30 days. He is back with his teammates. He is on the road to recovery, and his mental health and obviously his physical health is extremely important at any time. But here's a guy that has gone through obviously a lot more than we realized. He kept a lot of things behind the scenes, and I'm just really happy that he's addressed the issue. He's probably sending a statement to a lot of people that have heard his weakness, if you will, and are going to address it without hesitation. And this is the type of society we're living in now, and it's really nice to see that there's help that can be had out there, and it works. And anybody that needs help, don't hesitate. And kudos to Carey Price, and I hope obviously the very best on his recovery for him and his family and his quality of life.
Yeah, Rick, I think him coming out and saying it was substance use might help other people who are in a similar situation also ask for help, because Carey Price, goalie of the Montreal Canadiens, $84 million contract, beautiful wife, 3 beautiful kids. It seems like life's perfect. It wasn't. And so for other people who might be in a similar situation, they can say, wow, it happened to Carey Price. I guess it could happen to anybody.
Exactly. It just shows you how fragile we are. And, no matter how much money you have, there's no price for, pardon the pun, for health. And, there's a classic example. No money can buy health. And, I'm just really pleased to hear that some of these issues are going to be addressed in society in general.
And, you think of Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain and other famous people in a spotlight who have had similar issues. And so good for Carey Price to realize that and go get the help that he obviously needed.
For sure. The one last thing I just want to say on this is that, first off, you never know what anyone's going through. The second thing, and I don't want to say it's annoying, but we have to be careful about speculating about when he might actually be back. And that's not to say any of us did that, but I've noticed a lot of people have tried to ask the question, when is Carey Price going to be back? When is he going to be available to play? And we have mentioned the fact that he went through the offseason that he went through with knee surgery and problems with his hip and didn't skate through training camp. But going through something like this, I just find it's just so hard to put a timetable on when he could actually be back for this team. I imagine him being around his teammates is enough of an emotional lift, but I just hope that people, whether it's us in the media or fans or anyone else with Carey Price, we all wish him the best. I'm glad Rick said that. We all wish him the best going forward, but I just hope that people just kind of take their time with regards to figuring out when he'll actually be back for this team, because it's not an easy thing to predict.
No, it's a question, though, that fans understandably want to ask. They want to know when he's going to be back. And Dominic Ducharme answered it here yesterday when he said it's going to be a four-stage process. The first thing is Carey getting back in shape in the gym. The second thing will be going on the ice with the staff to see how his knee that was operated on the offseason is doing. The third step will be working with the goalie coach. And the fourth step will be getting ice with his teammates. And probably a fifth step that Ducharme mentioned the other day, too, is playing a few games in Laval. So as you said, Julian, the question was answered yesterday, and I think it doesn't need to really be asked again, because nobody knows when he's going to be back, but it's not going to be soon.
And I think that he touched on respecting his privacy and just, let him do whatever he has to do without anybody, questioning him on a daily basis. Let him take control of the situation, because I'm quite sure it's not going to be an easy road for him. And he said that it's not a quick fix. There's a process involved here, and, let him take whatever he's got to do to get himself feeling good, so that we can see a real happy Carey Price and a real happy family.
And I think the thing that I like right now with sports is there is this movement that mental health is just as important as the athlete's physical health. You know, we saw it with Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles at the Olympics. And yeah, these athletes still get heat for it, but I think there is a lot more understanding. And I hope over the years that understanding will continue to grow among sports fans, and that they realize there is a lot of pressure. They are humans, they aren't perfect, and they do need time to get their mental health in order the way they have to get, an elbow problem, a knee problem, a leg problem healed for them to go back and be the best athlete that they can be.
And in Montreal, as I mentioned, the fishbowl, it's not just on the ice, right? Carey Price, anywhere he goes in Montreal, is recognized. There's times, he'll pull a baseball cap down low and try not to be recognized. But, he spoke years ago about, he was afraid to go do groceries. Remember that? Because you'd just be hounded by people when he went out to do groceries. So there's really no escape from the spotlight in Montreal as a Canadiens player, which Rick would know because he lived it. But, back in Rick's day, there wasn't social media and everybody didn't have a camera, and now it's at a different level.
Well said by everyone on this topic. And just before we officially end off and go to question 2, just anyone watching this, just take care of your mental state, because the only person who can do that is you. To the next question, with regards to the Canadiens, they played a game after the statement was released by Carey Price against the Los Angeles Kings. Phillip Danault was back in his first game at the Bell Center with another team, of course, since leaving the Montreal Canadiens this off-season. The Kings end up winning in overtime 3-2. I believe that's the first overtime game we've seen of any kind for the Montreal Canadiens this year. What were your takeaways from the Canadiens' performance of the game and in overtime?
Well, for the Canadiens this season, it was a good night because they got a point. That's a loser point, the first one they've got this season. But it just highlighted that how fragile this team is. The third period, the Kings come out and score 6 seconds into the period. Dave Savard looks horrible on the play. It's a save that has to make. And I think with Jake Allen, we're seeing now what we saw at the end of last season. Jake Allen was signed to be a backup goalie. He wasn't signed to play 12 out of 14 games. And we saw him sort of breaking down a little bit at the end of last season when Carey Price was out for an extended. We're seeing it again now. He's not a guy at this age and this stage of his career. He's an excellent backup goalie. That's why Mark Bergevin went out and got him. But I just don't think he can handle that load that Carey Price or most starting goalies handle in the NHL. With Samuel Montembeault, it's obvious that they're afraid to put him back in net again.
There's a couple areas for me that I consistently see each and every game. And starting back in their defensive zone coverage, I don't know how many times I've seen the defenders running all over the place without any structure as far as what their job is supposed to be. And that comes with a little bit of talent, a little bit of direction. But I see the defense consistently give opposition great opportunities to shoot the puck without challenging them. We used to use the teaching phrase stick on stick. Anything coming from the top of the circle, you challenge the shooter stick on stick for a possible deflection. I don't see that. The defense are stuck in between. They're hoping that the puck hits them, and it's not hitting them, and it's either a goal or a real good scoring chance. And another area is the one-on-one battles. This is where it really comes down to how good and how determined you are as a group. And I see some glaring one-on-one battles that the Canadiens are always, second best in that department. And you're not going to win games, and you're not going to have control of the puck when you continually chase the opposition and are not able to push the opposition off the puck and win those one-on-one battles. So those areas are really hurting them. We saw it in the second period that it was horrific as far as what we were seeing as far as coverages go, and they're not going to go anywhere until they start with that end zone work to get it in place so that they take good prime scoring chances away from opposition. And it's tough to watch and frustrating to watch as an old defenseman that sees some of these glaring errors that consistently show up each and every game, and the result is they're getting goals scored against them because of it.
And they're inconsistent. They come out, they have a strong start to the game, second period comes and it's almost like they forgot that they have to come out there and still play, that the game is still happening right now. I think it was Jake Evans that said after the game against LA that he's not sure what it is, if it's the start because they're looking forward to the game, they're excited, but they're not able to continue to keep that momentum going throughout the game. And that's a huge problem. You have to figure out a way to keep that going. And I think there's starting to be that trend that if the Habs go up early on in this game, I think a lot of people feel, you know what, there's a strong possibility they're not going to be able to win this game because they almost get too ahead of themselves, that they're not, having that same kind of push that they did. And that game against Vegas is a prime example of that.
I was waiting for someone to mention that game.
Disaster of a game there, that it is too bad because there are moments that things start to look good, but then there are a lot more moments that you're like, wow, they really aren't learning. I know it's still early on in the season, but it's long enough gone now that they should be able to fix these glaring mistakes.
Well, the Vegas game is a perfect example of bad teams finding ways to lose. Like, that's a game. How do you lose when you're up 2-0 after the first period and outshoot the other team 20-1 and find a way to lose a game?
They were up 22-1 in shots. And people like to bring up the 20-1 after the first period. The Canadiens were up in shots 22-1 and were leading 2-0 and allowed 5 unanswered goals against the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that has been banged up. I was talking with a colleague of mine from The Athletic while we were watching the game. I think like the game they had played before was like the first, I think, against the Senators. So that was like the first game all year they went through a game where no one got injured. Like, that's how banged up the Vegas Golden Knights have been. And the Canadiens still lost that game.
Two of the goals by Vegas were power play goals, and they hadn't scored a single power play all season coming into the game, and they went 2 for 2.
They hadn't scored since the playoffs.
They went 2 for 2 against the Canadiens penalty. So it's 2, but maybe, I mean, the Canadiens practice against their own penalty killers, so you figured that would help them be good, but it doesn't. Maybe that's why they're no good on the power play too, because their penalty killers at practice aren't very good, so they don't. It's a mess.
Well, to tell you the truth, guys, we used to practice special teams, and it was always easier for the penalty killers to upset the your fellow teammates, because we just knew what they were doing or what they're trying to do. And I don't know how many times Claude Lemieux would step on my stick because I had already been there knowing exactly what he was planning. But it's what it is. It's really tough to see what's going on. I mean, if you look at the opportunities just last night with the power play, 2 minutes left in the game to put the game away, doesn't happen. I mean, we just continually hash and rehash. Why, oh boy, are they struggling in this department? It's really costing them a lot of hockey games, and tough to watch.
So after that loss to the Los Angeles Kings, the Montreal Canadiens find themselves 3-10-1 in the standings. It's not good. You'd think they'd have to tank, but the Arizona Coyotes seem to be doing a much better job at doing that. And I think the Chicago Blackhawks also have something to say about that as well. They find themselves closer to the Shane Wright sweepstakes than playoff contention. How did the Montreal Canadiens fall this far? This is a team that was in the Stanley Cup final how many months ago? And are they really as bad as their record shows? Rick, I'll start with you.
They are as bad as their record shows. 14 games into it, they're at the bottom of the league in goals for, goals against, face-off percentage. Almost every department, they are in the bottom of the league. And how do you expect a team to compete when you are losing in so many areas? And I mean, yes, you can talk about key injuries. Yes, you can talk about chemistry. You can talk about all those things. And it does play into it. Don't get me wrong. They're missing a lot of key ingredients that they're struggling to fulfill. Center as one, consistent goaltending, defense, the list goes on. But man, oh man, you can't struggle in all areas for so long without getting a real reading on what kind of team you have. And I'm sorry, they've got major work ahead of them to make some corrections in a lot of areas of their game if they're going to get anything going in a positive way. Particularly
on defense, right?
Well, we have I have watched a number of occasions that I wanted to jump into the television and almost skip to the point of saying, hey, either do it this way or we're going to get scored against. And the defense has to be so much better as far as challenging shooters go. And I look at the defense going to so-called try and challenge the shot, but it looks like they don't want to get hit with it. They're just like, they're doing everything other than lifting their leg. But anyways, they can do a much better job in attacking stick on stick, as we used to say, to force opposition to rush their play, and more importantly, to deflect pucks into areas that are not so dangerous. So it's they have some work to do there.
I just find this team just looks so lost. They're a mess right now. Nothing is working. Everything, it just seems so difficult for them. And this was a team coming into the season who had high expectations from making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. All the players said that they loved this new challenge that they had. And then they come out flat. And players that you got excited about during the preseason, like Christian Dvorak, hasn't been able to bring that same kind of energy that many fans were hoping for when they did do the trade and what they were able to see throughout the preseason. But what I do find interesting is that there hasn't been any kind of minor shakeup. Like, we all kind of laughed about when Carey Price was let go those years ago. But that's kind of things that you got to do when your team is not doing well. Have some kind of shakeup to send a message, make a trade, have Jeff Molson come out and speak to the media to talk about his team and what's the plan, what's going on here. It just kind of seems like this is status quo and the team is okay with it. And that everyone else around them that's watching this game are the ones who are, kind of have something wrong with them. Like it just seems like they're fine with what is going on right now with this team.
Well, last offseason, it seemed like every move Marc Bergevin made worked. This offseason, every move he made basically hasn't worked. I mean, David Savard has looked horrible out there. Dvorak hasn't played well. Savard's bringing back memories of Carl Alzner. I mean, it's a 4-year contract, I believe he has. Like, you can't see him the way he's playing now. He has to really improve a lot. The best offseason move that Marc Bergevin made is that when he traded Dvorak for the first round pick, he protected the first round pick, that Arizona gets the highest of the Canadiens' 2 first round picks unless it's a top 10 pick. So that was the best move that Marc Bergevin did in the offseason, is protecting that pick. If the Canadiens do have a top 10 pick, which it looks very much like they might, they get to keep it. But, any team that loses their number one goalie, Carey Price, their number one defenseman and captain, Shea Weber, Joel Edmundson, that's half of your top 4 defense from last season gone, Philip Deneau, Thomas Tatar, that's 2/3 of your number one line gone, Corey Perry and the influence he had in the locker room, Paul Byron's hurt. I don't think any team can recover from all those losses, and Marc Bergevin didn't do enough in the offseason to prepare them for that. And they've got him, move on. Like, it's just a saying, what's going on here? Like, who's in the? You have a lame duck GM. You don't have a captain in the room. Like, why is Shea Weber? The Habs are made pretty clear Shea Weber's not coming back. He's not going to play again. So why the thing that Shea Weber's still our captain? I don't get it. There's no leadership. Nobody knows what's going on. As I wrote in a column this week, Jeff Molson has to do something. Never mind talking to them. Like, if I was a season ticket holder right now, or I had a Loge, and I'd be saying, why am I spending so much money to watch this? This is horrible. So it's just been a mess. It's incredible how far they've fallen in such a short time since making it to the Stanley Cup final. But having said that, you got to remember, this is a team that shouldn't have even been in the playoffs last year. They were 18th in the overall standings. They shouldn't have been in the playoffs the year before. They were 24th in the overall standings. Because of COVID, they got in. They got hot at the right time last year. Carey Price got hot at the right time last year. They had a good run through the playoffs, but then they lost so many of the key players from that playoff run. This is not the same team on paper, and it's definitely not the same team on the ice.
I just feel like they're not realistic. Like, going back to the summertime when Dominic Ducharme had his golf tournament, and he said that David Savard is just as good pretty much as Shea Weber, that he's the kind of player who will be able to fill in that role. And everyone was kind of like, what are you talking about? And it just kind of seems like they're, not living in reality. Like they're trying to get everyone to believe their lies. I hope they don't believe what they're saying, because you're the coach of a team. You should know that David Savard is nowhere near the kind of player that Shea Weber is. And I just find that a little bit frustrating, hearing things like that from the coaching staff.
Yep. It's a laundry list of stuff the Canadiens need to do well if they want to at least look respectable. I could go in on the moves that they did make over the last few years that should be working, that are not working, but we only have so much time on this episode. One key piece of this team that has not been with the team since the season has started is Joel Edmundson. He was a rock for the team on defense last year. His father has since gone ill, and he spent time with him and his family, and that's the reason why we have yet to see him. But it looks as if he could be back relatively soon. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But when it comes time for him to return, who on the defense core, which we've already lined out the fact that they're not that good, is going to sit?
I think it's going to end up being Alexander Romanov. You want to put Joel Edmundson back with Jeff Petrie, and hopefully that will be able to give a boost to the defense, because as we've been talking about all episode, it's really been struggling, and that pairing is the one that the Canadiens will rely on the most. But I honestly think it's just going to be game per game basis, that it might be Kulak, it might be Romanov one game. I don't think it's going to be a specific player that's going to lose his job.
Well, it should be David Savard, but it's not going to be, because GM's admitting that he made a mistake in taking him. But it's going to be either Kulak or Romanov, I should say. My money would probably be on Kulak, because he always seems to draw the short straw when they're sitting the defenseman up in the press box. But Edmundson, we've seen him here at Brossard skating the last few days, and he looks a lot better than he did a little while ago. He's probably, Dominic Tram says, like maybe a week to 2 weeks away from returning. Nobody has missed him more than Jeff Petrie. I mean, Jeff Petrie is a shell of the defenseman he was last without Edmundson beside him, and he's obviously looking forward to him coming back. But I guess if I had to put my money on who would it would be Kulak, especially since Romanov has really played well the last 3 games since being a healthy scratch. He had a good game against the Kings also. He's been physical. He hasn't been running around as much as he had previously. So I think Brett Kulak's the guy.
Well, I think Edmundson has to take lots of time to get himself in really good shape so that they can play him about 45 minutes per game, because they're missing some stability and consistent play that he's known for. As far as who's on the outside looking in, I think it's going to really depend on, obviously, performance. I really like what Romanov has been doing lately. He seemed to have picked his game up in all areas and keeping things simple. Again, I think that it's going to be critical to get some pairings together and let them try and gel and feed off each other, so they know that they're not in one game, out another game. I think that they really have to solidify their pairings, because it's very, very critical, I think, back there, that you have good chemistry, and hopefully they'll size that up when he comes back to figure out which guys complement each other and which guys can do the job. But as far as who's in and who's out, it's going to come down to how they obviously perform, each and every night.
There is a ton of racetrack to go in this regular season. Maybe the Canadiens are already out of it already. Who knows? But we'll be here with more episodes of Hockey Inside Out to keep you company as we navigate through the 2021-2022 season. Jess, thank you for coming back. Stu, Rick, thank you as always. And you all watching at home, thank you for watching this episode. Subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube page. Subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. Go on the Hockey Inside Out website. At this point, we should be getting merch. We should be getting Hockey Inside Out merch. I mean, who wouldn't want to wear like a Hockey Inside Out beanie? I would wear it. I'd wear a beanie. I don't know who I have to talk to at the Gazette to get merch, but we should find a way.
You could be the model. You could be the model.
Are you saying I could be a model?
Yes. I think we found the Hockey Inside Out model, Julian McKenzie.
Well, all right. I think you just made my day.
Only 68 more games to go, guys.
68 games to go. But hey, what happens first? The Canadiens make the playoffs, or I end up modeling for Hockey Inside Out merch? Maybe it's the latter.
You look a lot better than the Habs. Julian, you look a lot better than the Habs do.
All right, thanks, guys.